Hey, welcome to Taylor's Trick Taking Table. I'm Taylor, and here we are, back on the original set. I'm back for the holidays. And what's great is we have another two-parter for you. I know we just did the Lord of the Rings double feature, but this one is not going to be just one game. It's going to be 6 games split up into 2 videos. But what is the connection if there's that many games? It is Indie Game Night Market. This is going to be at PAX Unplugged this Saturday. So in a mere 5 days. Woo! It's going to be so much fun. So what this is a bit of a rumination on the idea of what if you could have Tokyo Game Market, or like an indie game market in the States. And this is run by Newmail, Daniel Newman, who has 2 of the games we're covering, Agency and Gochapon Trick by Daniel. And Gochapon Trick has art by Side Bapu, which we absolutely love. And then also, what's wild, because there's going to be so many games at the market, which is, again, Saturday, 7 p.m., not sponsored, though Daniel is a friend, and Daniel did send me both of these games. So, huge grain of salt. And the other game that we're covering is my game, surprise, that I am selling at Indie Game Night Market. So, huge bias, the whole video. But this is so exciting. So I thought have a 2-parter, because in the latter, I'm going to be covering, just off screen here, Kansas City, the trick-taking game by Chris Ray, and T10, which uses the same deck by Chris Ray. And speaking of using the same deck, the other game that works with this deck that I designed on that day. So 6 total games, 2 videos, 1 week, 1 event, Indie Game Night Market. So exciting. So the premise is a bunch of awesome indie game designers are going to have a variety of games. In fact, even though I have 2 trick-taking games, I also have like a flip and write game. That is just like a little kind of miniature deck flip and write game. But also there's people there with real-time memory games. That sounds amazing. Or John from John Gets Games has an amazing game called Mutation, this dice abstract game that he showed me a little bit ago, and I cannot wait to get an actual copy, because we played with just dice. So I think that's one of the awesome things, and by extension the awesome thing of Tokyo Game Market, is you just have this wild idea and you make a certain amount of copies and then you sell them, and it's kind of like this one fun event that you can push wild ideas that maybe wouldn't get published, or maybe could get published later. Like, I think Marceline has a abstract game called High Tide that looks absolutely amazing, that I think got picked up already. Maybe I'm speaking wrong. Editing Taylor, censor me if I am. But anyway, you should come down. It'll be absolutely amazing. Again, it is this weekend, Saturday at 7 p.m. at PAX Unplugged. You need a ticket to PAX, but PAX is such an amazing, amazing event. In fact, it's going to talk about the last video on the channel. It's going to have the big release of Fellowship of the Ring trick-taking game. So that's going to be so exciting. And in fact, on Sunday of PAX Unplugged, I'm going to be doing a teach and play of this wonderful, wonderful game. So come on by, swing on by. It'll be like a live version of Taylor's Trick-Taking Table. I'll do the full teach. I'll try to get a good trinket or 2, and I'll be walking around like a teacher giving a test and making sure you have a good time playing it, because the teach and play, as in the name, I'm going to be teaching the Lord of the Rings trick-taking game, and then we're going to probably run through a few scenarios. We have like an hour, so that's probably a good 3 chapters, the first 3 chapters, maybe the first 4. And what am I even talking about? So yes, come on down. Indie Game Night Market. It's going to be an absolute blast. Chris Ray's going to be there, and going to be selling the video we'll cover next week. But for now, we are talking about Gochapon Trick, Agency, and then one of the games that comes in this little doohickey that I'm selling. It's called the Split Deck. It's kind of crazy. It'll make more sense in the rules teach, but essentially it is a standard deck, but the suit and the rank are split off from each other, essentially. And two of the games use that as a mechanic, where sometimes you can play like a queen, and then this other card here, you can flip it. So now it's a queen of spades, right? Instead of a queen of hearts, or I guess like a better example to illustrate is like, so 7 of diamonds, it could be, and the 8 of spades could be 8 of diamonds, or you could flip it and have it be the 7 of spades. So it's kind of like multi-use cards if you think about it that way, but a standard deck where you split the deck. The first game, I already have it out, might as well talk about it. The first game that I'll be covering it's called Work-Life Balance. And the premise is, the hook is a 2-player trick-taking game. It's a micro game, so it uses 18 cards or so, and you only play 4 tricks. But in terms of work-life balance, you have 3 suits, work, life, and balance, which is like diamonds because of money, that's work, and then hearts for family, and then clubs for friends, going out to the clubs, and you have to balance that. It's a 2-player only game, so. But you're only gonna play 4 tricks, and at the very end, you're both gonna get 2 tricks. And how that works is if one person takes 2, one person takes 2, that's totally fine. If one person takes 3, and the other person takes 1, the person who takes 3 chooses which of the tricks to give the other person. If one person takes 4 and one person takes 0, the other person who takes 0 actually chooses which 2 to take. And why that's juicy is because you can, through the trick play, make certain cards worth, or certain tricks worth more. I don't know if I'm selling this at all. It'll make more sense during the teach. It's a much more simple teach than what I'm making it sound. But that is work-life balance using the split deck. I don't know if you can see it here, but it's TSD, so the split deck with the 4 colors. It's kind of wild. And in fact, the tripod, I'm not using a tripod, that's why I'm so low in this video, is I hope you don't get motion sickness. Follow me. As you can see here, that is the tripod, as I'm using a bunch of the decks, because I forgot to bring my tripod when I was flying, but what a great use of the game. Anyway, so that's one of the games that we are covering, but watching over us the entire time we've been talking has been Gochapon Trick and Agency, both by Daniel Newman, who again sent me these, so huge grain of salt, and also obviously huge grain of salt, I made that game. So these two are, let me cover Gochapon first. It's essentially a push your luck set collection trick-taking game. The story is you are in a Gochapon parlor, almost called a trailer. The Gochapon, if you don't know, are those kind of bubble vending machines that have a toy inside, and you don't know what you're going to get because the bottom part where you actually like get the next Gochapon that's going to come out, the little bubble, is hidden. So you can see what's on the top, and it tells you what's in there, but you kind of want a certain one, and that's the feeling of this game. You don't know kind of what you're going to get. And it is reflected in the trick play, which we'll cover. And then the hook to Agency is wild. So it's a team game, so partnerships. You sit across from your partner, but what you're going to do is you are going to shuffle, you'll deal 4 hands, but they are going to sit in between you and your opponent. So it's going to go like your opponent, a hand, you, another hand, your opponent, a hand, your partner, another hand, and then back to that original opponent. So you'll have a hand of cards in between you and your opponents. I hope that made sense. What's interesting is there's these walls that are part of your hand. And over the course of the game, you can play those walls, which will deteriorate a block to allow you to play more of the hand that's in between you and your opponent. So your opponent's hand is kind of half of your hand, and that's true of both sides. So like you're sharing hands with your opponents. Wild again. I feel like nowadays you have to go to the table to really see these games, but that's the hook. That's the hook of Agency. So, Gochapon Trick, Agency, and Work-Life Balance. Let's go to the table now, and I'm going to show you how to play. And please, come on down. It'd be so much fun to say hi, to chat, to dish trick-taking games at Indie Game Night Market, at to teach and play, or just in the halls. It'll be so wonderful. Hopefully, catch you there. And again, in 5 days, we'll have another video right before PAX Unplugged. Oh, I'm so excited. It's going to be such a fun event. Everyone is so amazing there. It's so wonderful to meet up. I feel like it's such a good size con. I've always had a blast. So hopefully I'll catch you there. All right. See you at the table. Bye. The deck in Work-Life Balance is 3 suits from 4 to 10. Here we have a game of Work-Life Balance set up for the only 2 players. So you're going to shuffle the deck, you're going to deal 8 cards to each player, then you're going to deal a trump card, and you're going to cover any rank because all that matters is the suit. So as you can see, hearts is trump in this round, and then also you're going to deal a card, and that is going to be what points are worth in this round. So diamonds are worth 1 point each captured, and then sixes are worth 2 points each captured. And then there's going to be 3 cards cut that can be used, just to cover the rank, and they're just set aside face down. So players are going to be going back and forth, playing tricks. It's going to be 4 tricks total, and then it's going to be the end of the round. You're going to score. You're going to play 2 total rounds, and whoever has the most points wins, unless you're balanced, and then that is the ultimate victory. It's all about work-life balance. The suits are meant to represent work, so diamonds, because of money, family, so hearts, and then clubs, which are like going out, hanging out with friends. So you are trying to balance in this game. Also, in this game, as you notice from the deck, the cards are split rank and suit in each and every card, which comes into the gameplay. So let's just jump right in. The lead player for the first trick is the player who worked the least this week. So let's say it's the cat because they don't really do much. So the lead player will play any 2 cards from their hand, and those will form into what their play is. So, for example, let's say the cat wanted to play these 2 cards, or let's say these 2 cards for whatever reason. So they have the 4 heart and the 10 diamond. So how it works is when you play the 2 cards, one of them will be the rank and one of them will be the suit. So the cat could either play a 10 of hearts, or they could play a 4 of diamonds. And again, they could play whatever combination they want. They didn't have to pick those 2 cards, so maybe they even, do this. Maybe they want to play an 8 of hearts. So that is what they decided to play, the 8 of hearts, and hearts is trump, so maybe that was their goal. Or maybe they wanted to play the 4 of clubs. So once they're done and they're set, so 4 of clubs, the lead card that they played is a 4 of clubs. So coming to the lo-fi hip-hop girl, it is must follow. So she has to play one of these 2 cards here as the suit. Maybe she wants a weaker hand, so she'll choose the 10. That will be the suit she plays. But she can play any card she wants for the rank. And again, maybe she wants a weaker hand, so she's going to pick a really high card, and that is trump, and play it as the rank. She will win this trick, though, because it's the highest of the lead suit that would win, so the highest club in this case. Unless there's a trump, then it's the highest trump. If the values are tied, then it's just later played. So in this case, the lo-fi girl wins this one. She's going to take all the 4 cards into the trick, capture it like that, and then she's going to lead to the next trick. Maybe she plays a 5 of clubs. Coming to the cat. Cat does have to play, so maybe the cat decides to play also a 5 of clubs. Like I said, later played wins, so they are going to capture that trick. And the flow like this is going to continue. It's highest of the lead suit unless there is a trump, so maybe this player right here plays a 10 of clubs, or sorry, yeah, a 10 of clubs. Let me flip that the right way. But when the lo-fi girl plays an 8 of hearts, she would win because hearts are trump. And then the last trick, let's just say, goes to the cat. So at the end of the round here, players are going to check if they have also balanced the number of tricks. So if it's 2 tricks to 2 tricks, like each player took 2 tricks, you don't have to balance, you can go straight to scoring. But if something's off, players must balance the number of tricks. So if it's 3 to 1, the player who took 3 tricks is going to choose which of the tricks they want to give to the other player. They can look through the contents if they want, but so maybe in this case, the lo-fi hip-hop girl decides to give the cat that trick, so now they both have 2. In the case where one player took 4 and another player didn't take any, the player that took 0 is actually going to choose which tricks they want to take from the other player, but they can't look at the contents. So maybe the cat takes this one and this one. No matter what happens, whether it's 3 and 1 or 0 and 4 or 2 and 2, the players will both go into scoring with 2 tricks each. How scoring works is you're going to look through your 2 tricks, that's 8 cards, and you're going to get a point per suit on the scoring card and then 2 points per rank. So this player is going to get 1, 2, 3, and then plus any 6s. It looks like they got a 6 here, so that's 5 total points. And the player over here will count their score. You're going to play 2 total rounds. You're going to shuffle and redeal. You'll deal a new trump and a new scoring card, replay again, and then whoever has the most points at the end wins. And if you actually balance the score at the end of 2 rounds, that's the ultimate victory, and players can hug if they ever so want. That is how to play work-life balance. The deck in Gochapon trick is actually helpfully on this card right here. It has the entire deck makeup. As you can see, it is 8 to 2 in 7 different suits. And in each suit, there is a different toy, a different Gochapon little figurine that you can get out of that suit. Here we have a game of Gochapon trick almost set up for 3 players here. So depending on the player count, you're going to shuffle the whole deck and deal a certain number of cards to each player. At 3 players, it's 12. At 4 players, you're going to deal 10 to each player. Any remaining are going to be put in the center of the table. You're going to take this refund card, flip it, and put it onto that deck. You're going to shuffle that into itself, and this is going to stay at the center of the table. This is where players are going to be doing random Gochapon during the course of the trick taking. To finish setup, you also need to give each player 5,000 coins, but we're just going to keep track of that near the end. So let's say the chocolate bar over here is the start player. They're going to play to the first trick. You can play any card you want into the first trick. They led with this gray 8 here. So it is a must follow game, and the fact that you have to follow all the suits present. Since there's only 1 suit present here, the pig coming to them, they have to play that suit. So they only have 1 of that suit, and so they're going to play that. And then coming to the elephant, there is only the gray suit out there, so they are going to play that. The winner of the trick is going to be the highest card of the most represented suit. So as you can see here, gray is the only suit represented, so it will be this chocolate bar. They must buy something from this trick. So as you can see here, there's an 8, 5, and a 3. So maybe this player over here wants to start collecting the toys, they're all toys, wants to start collecting the robot here. They're going to pay 300 yen, and they're going to take it over here. They could buy anything else they wanted. They just have to buy at least 1 thing. We'll go into if a player doesn't have enough money or what that means later. But so for the first trick, they have 5,000 yen. They're going to buy 300 over there. And maybe they also think they're going to collect motorcycles, so they're going to buy that as well. Any cards that aren't bought just go off into the discard. And so in addition to buying 1, but maybe any or many of the Gochapons, player who wins the trick, if they want to, can push their luck and get a random toy in here for, on the back of the card, 500 yen. So maybe this player does it. They're going to say, oh, I pay this for 500 yen. They're going to flip this, and they got the green akabako, I think. And they're going to put that over into their counter as well. And so the winner of the trick is going to lead to the next trick. So this player over here, maybe they, just for good example's sake, are going to play another gray just to show off what can happen. So this blueberry pig up here doesn't have any gray, so maybe they play this. And so what's interesting now is when it comes to the elephant, looking at their hand, they could play a gray because gray is one of the suits in there. But if they wanted to, they don't have that. Let's say pig actually played this, sorry. So they could play a gray because they do have to follow 1 of the suits. So it's not must follow, it's must follow 1 of the suits present. But if they wanted to, they could instead play the pink because they have to play either gray or pink. So if they only had gray, they'd have to play gray. If they only had pink, they'd have to play pink. If they didn't have either, they could play whatever they wanted. So in this case, again, how it resolves is it's the highest number of the most represented suit. So even though it was lead gray, the most represented suit now is pink. So the highest now is the frog. So now the elephant has to buy 1 of these. They see 2 of the cats. That is starting to look good for scoring, which I'll explain later. They're going to buy both of those. And maybe they do play Gochapon, and they got this cactus person. And so flow like this is going to continue, where the lead player will play a card, the next person has to follow suit if possible. So coming here, they play this. If, let's say, the chocolate bar didn't have any pink, and they played that, and then it comes to the pig, and they don't have pink or yellow, if there's no majority, then it just becomes highest number. And if there's a tie in that, it's later played. So right now, it would be this one, because it was a 4, it's the highest number. But if this was a 2, this would win because it would be 2, 2, 2. Same thing happens. The winner of the trick has to buy at least one. So this elephant over here has to buy one of these. This looks good for their majority. They're just going to buy this one. And maybe they pass on playing Gochapon. They don't want to do that. And then they would lead to the next trick after discarding this. Flow like this is going to continue. If you ever flip it and find the refund card, you're going to hold that just like you would over here for later. We'll explain what that does later. But you're going to play out all the tricks. So 12 tricks at 3 players or 10 tricks at 4 players. So let's jump ahead to the end where everyone will have, or maybe not, some of the toys that they were going for. Before we go to scoring, some edge cases here. Let's say a player spent a ton of money and they are now down to either 0 or 100 yen left at the end of their turn. Then they're actually out of the round. They take their hand and they just discard it. They are done playing. They can still win because this could amount to a ton of points, right? But they are now not going to play any cards into the trick and they're just completely out of it. If they had the lead, then that lead would pass to the next player. If possibly there's only one player left in that way, like maybe Blueberry also was out, the remaining player may choose to buy whatever is left in their hand and optionally one card from the deck. Another edge case, when you win the trick and take something, when you do the Gochapon flip, you can only do it one time. You can't do it multiple times after you win a trick. Another edge case is if you can't afford anything in the trick, it actually goes to the next highest player in the majority, or if there's no majority, the next highest card and later played. So in this example here, this popsicle here has bought a ton. They just won this and maybe they only have 500 yen left and they can't actually buy one of these. Then the win will actually transfer to the elephant over here and they would have to buy one of these 3. Similar to as if they won the trick, they must buy one of these 3. Here we are at the end of the round, and as you can see, the purple blueberry pig did not take any cards at all. If that happens, the player resisted the temptation of the Gochapon parlor and they actually get 5 bonus points. But in addition to any points you get from set collection or bonus points for not taking any tricks, you actually get 1 point per 200 yen that you have left. So this pig started with 5,000, so then they get 25 points plus the 5, so they got 30 points. Then we can go do the math here. As you can see, this player over here, this chocolate bar, they got 2 of those, but everything else was actually just 1 set. So looking at how the scoring works for the deck makeup, the set collection scoring, for if you just get 1, the point for each one of those ones is just 1 point, but if you got 2, it's worth 4. So this player right here got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plus 4, so they got 9 points plus whatever amount they, kept left over. So say they had 2,000 left, so then they got 10 more points. What's interesting is you can't quite just do the math because some of these might have been those Gochapons, the ones that you flip over at random. So that could have cost, this 700 right here could have actually cost 500. So you do have to keep track of, as you're going, what you are spending because it's hard to do retroactively. Coming over here, the elephant playing the trombone. They got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 2, 2, 1, and a refund. Let me explain the refund now, because how it works is, at the end of the round, right now, when we're doing scoring, you can use it to get money back equal to the value of any card in your collection by discarding both the refund card and that toy card. So you don't get the set collection value, and you get rid of the refund card. But maybe it's worth it, right? So like this right here is, just a refund card, and this over here is worth 300, but it's only worth 1 point. So maybe refunding it gets you, over that cusp, so you could actually get 2 points from that in a way. So maybe that would be worth it. Maybe they refund this. So then now at the end here, they have 2 stacks of 2, so that is 8 points, but the stack of 4 here is, if we consult our handy dandy notebook, is worth 16. It's just the square if you don't need to do that and you like doing math. So that's how the scoring works, kind of a set collection. You have now just played 1 round. To play the full game, you're going to play 3 full rounds. You're going to shuffle up the cards, reset up the refund and the remainder, and players actually go back to having 5,000 yen each. You're going to reset that, and you're going to play out those rounds. Whoever has the most points will lead to the next round, and then whoever has the most points at the end of those 3 rounds wins. And if there's a tie, it's whoever has the most money. And that's how to play Gochapon Trick. The deck and agency is 4 suits numbered 1 through 9. The red van suit is the trump suit. There's also walls in the game. Certain cards will have points on them, like the 3, the 7, and all the 5s, except for the trump suit does not have any points. Here we have a game of agency set up for 4 players. So to play the game, you do need card stands that don't come with the game. As you could have guessed, I'm using Pikoko, which is a game I probably should cover. Shouts out Adam Board Game Wales. So in the game, you are going to shuffle, deal the cards, and not rearrange them to the hands that are going to be in between players. So these players, pieces here, like the blueberry pig, the elephant trombone, chocolate bar, and the green slime, thanks Ben for sending that, they are going to be playing to the trick, but their hands are split amongst the players sitting next to them. And not just players, but their opponents. This is a team game, so the blueberry pig down here is on a team with the chocolate bar, and the elephant is on a team with the goo. So looking at Blueberry's perspective, their hand here is a mix of cards from over here and cards from over here. So your hand is anywhere up into the wall. So notice there's a wall here and a wall here. So Blueberry Pig's hand is these 3 cards and these 3 cards. There's ways that will grow through the game, but hopefully that makes sense. So the elephant's hand is these 3 cards up into that wall, and then these 3 cards up into that wall. So players are on a team, and their goal is to help their teammate capture points. The least trustworthy person will start with the first trick of the round. Let's say it's the blueberry pig. They are going to lead anything they want into the game, except they cannot lead a wall unless they're forced to, which we'll get into later. So it is a must follow game, but you can trump. It's a may trump, but you can also may wall. So let's look at their plays here. So maybe they lead with a 4 of hats. So they play that out there. So now the elephant must follow. And so the elephant has, over on this end, they have just suitcases and mustaches. So they don't have to play here. And then over here, they have 2 mustaches and a van. So they can play whatever they want. Maybe they decide to play a 5 briefcase. So that goes down into the center. And as you can see on the briefcase here, there's 4 dots on the bottom. So that indicates that card is worth 4 points when captured. The chocolate over there is noticing that, oh, their team is winning because it's the highest of the lead suit if there's no trump, so they're winning. So maybe they're going to play a wall. So you can always play a wall if you're following. And what that does is walls are worth 2 points. So maybe they're going to try to grease the trick. They're trying to add more points to the trick for their partner. But what's interesting is they cannot win the trick. And they've also just grown their hand to not just those 3 cards, but now those 2 cards that were in the middle there that were blocked. Now coming to the slime over here, it is still must follow. They do have a 3 hat over here, and they have a 9 hat over here. Since it's worth so many points, they're just going to play this 9 hat. They could have played the 1 trump, but they were already going to win with the 9 hat, so they're just going to play that. So the player that played the highest, if there's no trump, is going to collect the trick. So the goo is going to collect this trick. This was great. It was worth 6 points for their team, and then they're going to lead to the next trick. So maybe they lead with that. Interestingly enough, it is may follow. May trump. So the pig, maybe they want to capture those points right away, and they are going to play the 5 of trump. The elephant is going to follow suit, just playing the 9. And so maybe now over here, those 2 cards, that unlocked a 7 of trump for the popsicle person, but they're not going to play it because their partner's already winning. So maybe they actually just add another wall. So their hand now reaches all the way to the elephants, but what's interesting now is that the elephant's hand also reaches all the way over to the popsicles. So was that good? Oh, who knows? So now the heist of the trump will win it. If there is, and there is, there's the vans, which are trump. So the blueberry pig is going to capture this trick, and it was worth 4 points. So flow like this is just going to continue until either a player cannot play a thing. So whether they run out of cards, because that definitely can happen. Like, for example, over here, the elephant player can be playing some of the cards that the popsicle player could be playing, so they could be cannibalizing their own hand. They could run out at different tempo from other players, so that could end a trick. Or if there's no cards left to play, like you play out all the tricks, that's another way to end the hand. Some edge cases, if a player has the lead and they only have walls to play, then they are forced to play a wall. In that case, the next player will set the lead suit if possible, and that will be what has to be followed. And the game can again end if someone can't have a valid play, or if a certain team captures 22 points, because there's only 40 points in the hand. The team that captures 22 or more points, they win that hand, and it's called a game point, and players will shuffle real deal, and it's the first team to 2 game points is the winner, and that's how to play Agency. So that is Agency, Gochapon trick, and work-life balance. I'll talk about work-life balance at the end because it'll be less of a review and more of like a designer diary because I designed it. Huge bias there. Speaking of huge bias, about these two as well, even though these will be more reviews. Daniel gave me these games, and Daniel is a pal, and I'm working the booth. I'm attending Indie Game Night Market, which is put on by Numill Games at PAX Unplugged, which is Daniel, and so there's huge bias. So take everything what I say from now on with that huge bias in mind, in effect. Let's first talk about Agency. So I think this might be my favorite Daniel Newman game. Obviously, take Mori out of the equation because I developed that, so that is just, beyond bias. So, but yeah, Agency is, I remember playing at T9 a game that used card holders. I think that was like a climbing shedding game out of Japan. And then also there's Pikoko that uses card holders. But I just love this idea of, or kind of like a lose, I guess, but that idea of cards being twisted and not just holding them, and like some cool concept of like what is your hand and what isn't. And I think what Agency does so well is it plays with that idea of, yeah, you can have shared hands, but it's also with your opponents. Oh, such a cool concept. I love that element of, do I break down the wall to get to my opponent's hand because they have good cards, or do I kind of not do that at all so that they can't get to my good cards? Like, do I try to play my good cards early? That's such a fun tension. I think that the overall flow of how hands work is interesting as well, because it's like, oh, maybe I can't play a card because my opponents are playing my cards more, and like it ends early. I love player defined end of rounds. I love putting that in the players' hands, like letting them have the driver's seat of when games end. I think the point balance is good. Yeah, I think making it point trick, it works well. I think that the fact that walls are worth points are great, so you are choosing to kind of change your hand, expand your hand possibly, or definitely, but it comes at a cost of you definitely not winning the trick and making the trick even worth more points. So you're trying to do that when your partner is winning, right? So there's such a cool tension to that. I think overall there's a great amount of tension, there's a great amount of gameplay. I think my only critiques are being able to play the wall at any time is perfect. I think being able to also play the wall and trump at any time makes it a little loose for me. For some reason, it's such a cool tension to be like, oh, do I want to break the wall or not? But having May trump makes it a little loose. I wish it was just miss follow, I think, and then May wall. I think must follow, May wall, May trump is a little bit far, and it gets a little too loose for what I like the restriction of the hands. The fact that you're sharing hands with other players is such fun tension. I think a lot of point trick games, a lot of partnership point trick games have May follow trump because you want that level of like, let me set up my partner, like the hammer is so important, like the hammer is just like super important. But I think in this game where they're like the hook is the fact that you're sharing hands. I think sometimes the May Trump was like just such a big deal, or gave players a little bit too much flexibility when I actually wanted that tension, I wanted that restriction of what the walls were doing to people, and like making the walls such a big deal when they got played, because that's like having that as your one decision, as opposed to like now you can make Trump as well, so it felt a little loose. I still think it's a great time, and it's a wonderful game to show people, because there's so much interesting stuff that goes on. But I think the May Trump just caught me a little bit loose. I think that was, and again, I don't know what it's like when it's all must follow, but still a blast. I think overall, I have some nitpicks with the graphic design. Like there's no dots on the 6s and 9s, and that was tripping people up. And then also like the suits above the ranks always pet peeve of mine. It just kind of a little bit like, oh, okay, like throws people off a little bit. But I do love the wall. The wall is a classic graphic design. I don't know if you can see it. Look at that. I think everything else is clean. Everything else makes sense. There's a cool thing. You see it more in Gochapon, but like the back of the suits are different as well. So like the hats are checkerboard, and then like the mustaches are loops. That's always a fun touch when there's multiple ways to distinguish what is different from a card. But overall, yeah, I think besides those two nitpicks, I think the graphic design is great. I also love, this is just a small fun touch, but the title is like Daniel Newman's agency, and then when it's mirrored, it's reversed really well, which I don't know, I really like that. So overall agency, good stuff. I would say, yeah, like I said at the top, I think my favorite, Daniel Newman. Gochapon trick, Sai Beppu, Daniel. First off, I guess I ended the last one kind of with talking about graphic design. Maybe I'll start with this one. This one has Sai Beppu art, which is just, you know me. I'm a sucker for Sai Beppu art. It has some of the funniest, silliest pieces of art that I've seen in games, and I think that speaks volumes to what Gochapon really is. I used Gochapon pieces as the player pieces because, it fits, right? But also, it's fun to illustrate, like, yeah, a pig that's a blueberry. Like, there was just a Gochapon parlor that was just fruit-based pigs, like a pig that was an orange. Or the elephant playing trombone. That's just what Gochapon is. So, when I saw, again, what I think is maybe one of my favorite pieces of art is Frog on Toilet, Contemplative Frog on Toilet. I loved it. I think Sai did an absolutely amazing job capturing such the whimsy that makes Gochapon so interesting. I do think that the cover, maybe this is just me, the cover looks like butts. Am I wild? It looks like a bunch of booties. I can't not see that. Other than that, I even like this little dude at the back, which I don't actually, I don't think that's actually in, you can't even collect it. So this is the rarest of them all. The Gochapon that's the rarest of them all, the one on the back. But so, graphic design wise, I think I love the fact that on the back is the 500. Like, it's cool to have the backs of the cards be functional in the game. I do think, I mentioned this in the agency review, what I just talked about, like what just happened. I mentioned this in agency, that it's cool to have the backs matter. And they are different in this one, but I think the colors are so dark you can barely kind of tell. And in addition to that, I kind of just wish there were suits. And I get that it's both suit, like you have to care about the suit and the rank and what's in the middle. And you kind of don't want suits to maybe confuse people what's in the middle. But I think it's tough because you always have to look at what's in the middle because it's so important. So there's just a lot of like this in the game where you're just like fully looking through the cards. The art's great, so no complaint. But I think like you played a lot, you kind of do want to have some level of like being able to fan your cards and see kind of what's there, as opposed to like a big part of the game is like what's in my hand, what set do I not think I can collect because I just have like a lot of low numbers with that Gochapon in it. So like it's like when you're looking at your hand at the start, it's a lot of just like this, which I wish there were symbols or like both the suit symbol and the Gochapon on the side. I think that would be nice. Anywho, I think it's a cute touch that it's in yen. Granted, it's a little form of a function because you get 5,000 yen, but it's kind of like you could just have 50 and then just do the numbers. In fact, just like Agency, I should have said, Agency does not come with the card holders, which is 100% required. It's not like an optional thing or like a nice to have. It's like pretty much 100% required. Similar here. It's not like, you know, you have $10 you can spend. It's 50, so, or 5,000 yen. So you need poker chips, or we used a calculator. And you can't reverse calculate it because you could have, you know, like I said in the video, you could have flipped off that 500. So there's just a level of, which is fine, like you need extra stuff with the game. Again, we use calculators, so everyone has a phone nowadays. It totally works. To the gameplay, it's interesting all the math that's in the game. So the scoring is squares, right? So like 1 squared, 2 squared, 3 squared, that's how many points it is. All of the different gachapons are like perfectly mixed into it all. So like, as you can see, the akabeko goes all the way through. So like there's low of everything, there's high of everything. It's completely balanced. I think also like 500 yen is, well, not only like a very, like you see a lot of things that are like 500 yen in Japan. So that's also fun. But it's also like right in the middle of what it could be, because 200 yen is a point. So that's like 2.5 points that you're gambling on. And if you flip something, that is essentially just 1 point unless you have a set with it. So you kind of want to flip, leading to at least having it be a third of something. There's definitely that push your luck tension in the game. The thing is, there's some of the trick taking that I do not love, but there's some of like that feeling of being in a gachapon store trying to find a specific gachapon that I do think works. It feels thematic. I think a lot of people talk about a thematic trick-taking game. Well, having that deck in the middle that's just random feels like a gachapon thing. It feels like that. It feels like that random... Whoa! One thing in the rules that tripped us up, and I think it's a really important thing, which is tough. I didn't know how we landed on it, but it says, the winning player must purchase at least 1 card from the trick, but they may purchase any more if they want. Totally normal, totally fine. The winner places the cards they purchase face up in front of themselves. The winner may also buy the top card of the deck for 500 only once per trick. We didn't know whether that meant you could do it before or after. We treated it as you have to do after you buy, just because that's the way the rules are written, but it doesn't necessarily say that, right? And it's actually like a huge deal, especially at the start, because at the start it's like, oh, maybe I want to 500 flip and then have that inform what I buy. So that was tough. I think that confusion was a little tough. Also, the shoot the moon or whatever, you know, obviously it's not shoot the moon, or the alternative strategy where if you don't take anything, you get 5 points plus your money, which is, you know, every 200 is a point. So that's 25 points plus the 5 is 30 points. I think maybe it's just too low, or maybe it's also like not incentivized, because the fun of the game is trying to find gachapon, trying to find a set. Maybe it's not incentivized, but it's more of like a consolidation, like, you didn't really do anything. I think it's tough, because like with the scoring in the game, if you get like a set of 3 and 4 even, you are pretty much there with someone who didn't get anything. And if you didn't get 3 or 4, you're kind of close. Like if you get a few 2s and like a 3, you're fine. So I always, every single hand, whoever didn't take anything does not win. And usually they don't do great. I think the idea is you don't want to shoot the moon, but it's tough because then it's like, it's in there. And also in this game, you can kind of just like run it. Like at the start, if you are dealt like 3 8s or like an 8 and a 7 or something, because everyone's like in suit usually, you can just capture a bunch of cards and a bunch of toys. And then the other ones just get like discarded. So I think it's maybe an expectation thing, but like getting 6 and 7 of a set and like 5, you know, is a little bit more of a pipe dream. You're probably going to have to, you know, get those random ones, especially because the random ones are in that big deck and someone might not. Like if other people don't do that and then only you do it, like, there's still a possibility that the ones you want are like at the bottom, which again is very Gochapon. So again, there's some frustration there, which fits thematically, but as a trick-taking game, it's a little tough. You know, it feels a lot like Gummy Trick, where it has the same must-follow, where you just have to follow any of the suits, and then the majority of the suit wins, but then there's also in Gummy Trick, you have that random flip. That's what it feels like. You have that like random flip. I think this game is tough to review because I'm like, oh, that's really cool. It's very mathematical in certain ways, and like the 500 yen is in the perfect place, the deck's in the perfect place, the scoring is perfectly squared. It all makes sense. But I think the trick taking itself, it's like high cards are good because you want, like I said, like Shooting the Moon isn't great. It's like a consolidation prize, so you want cards. But high cards are just good. Low cards aren't great. And also, like, if someone's just running it, or like the first person runs it and the second person runs it and they just like run it back and forth because it makes sense to, that takes out so many of the types of random Gochapon. So like the people who are winning tricks later aren't really getting those sets because it's kind of like been cannibalized, which again is thematic. Like if someone's like paying a bunch of money to get specific types and like throwing away the ones that they don't need, it feels like you did come in and try to just get the dregs, and it's either you shoot the moon and you don't take any dregs, or like you take one trick and you're like, I have to buy something that stinks, right? So it feels like in every hand I've had, it's like a player will win a bunch, another player will win a bunch, and then there's a player who like accidentally wins a trick or something, and then there's a player who tries to shoot the moon and then either accidentally wins a trick, and the latter two players usually just like don't do as well as the players who just like win. So it's tough. I think maybe I've played it more at 4 than 3, and I'm reviewing it more from that point of view of 4 than 3. And the tough thing about 4 players is that there's only 10 tricks, so you just have less that goes around. And at 3 player you have 12 tricks, and there's one less player, so there's maybe more that goes around and more that gets grabbed and bought. Again, maybe it's like an expectation thing where it's like, oh, set collection, and then usually you get like 2 to 4 of the 7, which is fine. But and it does feel like Gochapon. I think the refund is a cool thing, but it's also tough because it's only like once and it like doesn't really come up. Like it'll come up maybe like, you know, like once a game. So it's tough to have like a really cool mechanic that doesn't like shine. Your mileage may vary, but this one didn't quite hit for me, even though love the theme implemented well, love the art, and it seems all there. I just think like a good hand is a good hand, and then like, yeah, if you're sitting there with a bad hand, it's like not the best. It's not too fun. The pushing your luck though is fun. Like I think this sings when everyone has a good balanced hand, and you get those fun interactions of like, especially balance in suits, right? Where someone leads with like a 7 or an 8, and then someone short suited, and then you can choose either, and you play one or the other. So yeah, I think that is Gochapon Trick. Try it out. Tell me what you think, because I think there are people who would love it. Theme-wise, push your luck-wise, I just think it was maybe not for me. On to Work-Life Balance. Work-Life Balance was second design, third design, very old design for me. In fact, when Indie Game Market came up, I was like, oh wow, because I'm doing Zooin' more, so a lot of my wild ideas I am publishing. They are on Kickstarter. So part of the stipulation for Indie Game Market was that it's not being published or not picked up or not going to Kickstarter or self-published or whatever it is. And so I was like, oh cool, I can do some of the more wild ideas. And one of them is like a flip and write game where it's a wild idea. It's like a game where players are laying cards over each other to create shapes, if that makes sense. So that's also like a weird one. But I've always had this idea of a standard deck that's split into suit and number and all the cool things you can do with it. And it was, in my mind, just called, the split deck or whatever. And so I knew it was a weird idea, and I didn't think I could ever pitch it, or like, I don't know who would be interested. Just because it is so wacky, because players can kind of do whatever they want with their hand. It's like multi-use, right? So I was like, oh, this is the perfect opportunity. Wild idea. This is essentially like took a game market where you just put out something weird. You're like, hey, that's weird, right? So I thought that was the idea behind it. And I've had this game, like I said, for like 3-4 years now. It started off, I was thinking of how to make the shortest trick-taking game I could. I just played Catchy. There's like 13 cards, maybe? No, 15 or 16 cards. And then also there is, YA Otter is like 18 cards. But anyway, there was like really short trick-taking games that I was playing. I love that idea. So I was like, oh, how do I make one that does that? And then I was like, oh, what if there's multi-use cards? So that's a classic thing like Button Tray does, is like, oh, if you have so few cards, we'll make them multi-use. And I was like, oh, cool. So the two kind of went in order. And then I was thinking like, oh, if there's so few cards and you have so few tricks, how do you make it so each trick is maybe a little bit more interesting? So that's why I came up with the idea of like, okay, only 4 tricks, but there's levels of how do I craft my hand in the suit and number play to move around like the restriction. Like I don't just have a Jack of Hearts and a 9 of Spades. It could be, you know, any combination, Jack of Spades, 9 of Hearts, or whatever, with any other card. I think after choosing that, having it be like, oh, it's kind of balance of like the suit and the rank, kind of like this 1 and 2 balance idea. Then I started playing with that idea of like, okay, if you have only a few number of tricks, what's the fewest number of tricks where it's still interesting, but also you can have that balance at the end? So 4 came up nicely, because if it was 6, there's too many like 5 and 1, or 2 and 3, or 1 and... That's 5 and 1. You get the idea. But what I thought was interesting about this idea was if you make a suit worth points and numbers worth points, like for example, like if hearts are worth points, I could throw the heart in there by paying a 9 of Spades, and this could get captured, and like this is worth a point now, even though it wasn't kind of part of the trick besides like the rank, which is interesting. So I like the flexibility that players have, a little bit of a tactical nature, or pretty tactical. I think the game's pretty tactical, but you can, I think the card play is tactical, but I think the strategy there is, what do you do with the 4 tricks? Do you let someone take 4, and so you can pick and you keep track of which ones you want? Do you balance out the number of points you have amongst the tricks so that once it gets split, like if it's 3 and 1, you don't kind of mind, there's actually like a lot of good stuff? Or do you try to take 2 and 2 and really fill one trick with a bunch of points? Because you can play, like if the if the point number is 9, I could play a 9 of Spades with the 9 here, try to win this trick, and then now that's 4 points right there. And then hopefully they play, you know, a suit, or maybe the suit is Spades, and then that's 5. So then it's a really juicy trick that I don't want to lose. Well, then I'm definitely not going to try to take 4 tricks, right? Or some way lose that, right? So I thought it was cool that the tactical nature of the trick card play, and then the strategical nature of, do I want to win 2, 1, or 0, or 4, or 3, had like an interesting blend. And, you know, it's a micro game, so it's over in like half a second. So the video cut out because I'm talking too long. But the other game that we'll cover just after Indie Game Night Market will be also using this deck, Betwixt 2 Tricks. We're using that same system of you will play, you know, a rank and a suit as separate cards, but players are sitting in between you, kind of like between 2 cities, where there's a person here, there's a person here, but you're actually playing the rank to that person and the suit to that person, so kind of like splitting it. And then the person next to you will play the rank to the person you play the suit to. Does that make sense? It's kind of crazy, super crazy. Anyway, it's just also a wacky fun deck that you can do silly fun things with. So that is work-life balance. Alrighty, whew. Agency, Gochapon trick, work-life balance. Come to Indie Game Night Market. That'll be wild. See Daniel there, see Chris Ray there, see John Gets games there, bunch of other amazing people, bunch of other amazing games. It's gonna be a hoot. Come on down. Love to say hi. I am so excited. PAX Unplugged is such a fun venue for this too. It feels indie. I know it's big. I think it's in like the tens of thousands. But it has that feeling. So I'm super excited to be there in this kind of fun indie scene. Thank you so much. So excited. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch y'all hopefully at PAX Unplugged. All right, later.